Looks like an orchestra, sounds like an orchestra, features something that no other orchestra might have had before. The guest soloist on the cello is a robot. This recently played out, get it, in the European nation of Sweden. Machines have been taught to play cello before, but this could be the first time one played live with a symphony. The AFP news agency reports that the composer, whose modern classical work's been played in prestigious places around the world, wanted to see how technology could be incorporated into a human performance. And, well, this is it. We don't know how far this could go in terms of more complex cello arrangements, whether people would pack concert halls to hear more machines make music, what it costs to design and program the machine, or what it could mean for human musicians trying to predict the future. But for this particular concert, though critics might have called one of the members robotic, it certainly seemed capable of playing beautiful music. Hi, I'm Carl Azuz with The World from A to Z. After days of storms and intensely heavy rainfall across parts of France and Italy, numerous cities and villages have been inundated by flooding. Rivers have burst their banks. Rescues of people and animals have been needed. Streets have become waterways, and power outages are widespread. Parts of south-central France reportedly received 27 inches of rain in a 48-hour period. It caused what's believed to be the worst flooding in 4 decades. And when there was finally a break in the weather, some of the French who evacuated their homes went back to find them severely damaged or worse. Things aren't much better in parts of neighboring Italy, and for the central part of that country, more rain is in the forecast this week.
Italian first responders and emergency workers have been dealing with dramatic weather. In the southern island of Sicily, many of the roads were turned into rivers and people had to be rescued from their motorbikes and their cars. Across on the mainland in the southern region of Calabria, a giant sinkhole opened up on a busy highway, swallowing a car. But the most dramatic images are coming out of the center of the country near the city of Bologna, where rescuers were able to save a 3-month-old baby and its parents with a helicopter. They've also had to rescue people from buses and cars that have been abandoned on the roadside. Much of this area is farmland that was flooded last year, meaning that much of the infrastructure is not even back online from those devastating floods. It was also hit earlier this year by Storm Boris, which left its devastating impacts and left the ground very saturated. And the worst news is that the country's Civil Protection Agency has called for another red alert on Tuesday, meaning that whole region in the center is going to be under flood alert as rivers rise.
On this date in world history. October 23, 1850, the National Women's Rights Convention began in Massachusetts. Women's suffrage and opportunities in education and employment were major topics. Hundreds of delegates came from across the country, but at the time, most Americans reportedly opposed the convention. Still, it laid the groundwork for future reforms. The first time an aeroplane was used in combat was on this date in 1911. An Italian pilot flew it over enemy lines to spy on the Turkish during the Italo-Turkish War. Not long after that, another Italian pilot used a plane to drop bombs on the enemy. And this was the date in 2002 when a group of Chechen militants took more than 900 hostages at a theater in Moscow, Russia, and demanded that Russian forces leave Chechnya, a Russian republic. Dozens of hostages were later released. Some were killed by the terrorists, but more than 130 died after Russian forces used a potent sleeping gas and stormed the theater. All of the militants were likely killed, but questions about the tragedy and the tactics remain. The U.S. is in the midst of National Teen Driver Safety Week, with car crashes being one of the leading causes of death for Americans ages 15 to 18. The event that's supported by the U.S. government promotes safe driving habits and encourages parents to discuss the issue with young drivers. Experts say practicing together, like on a cone course in a parking lot, and setting ground rules can help keep young drivers safe. Those can include limiting driving at night, limiting passengers that can distract drivers, totally nixing phone use, and always requiring seatbelts. And officials encourage parents to model safe practices like seatbelt use, following speed limits, not tailgating, and not using their phones, so young drivers have an example to go by.
Word and out. Hans and Zachariah Janssen are widely credited with inventing what device in the late 1500s? Microscope, stethoscope, telescope, gyroscope. The Jansens, who were makers of eyeglasses, are believed to have invented the world's first compound microscope.
The Janssen's microscope was not an advanced device by today's standards, and it did not provide much magnification. But it opened the door to the very small world around us, one that microscopes and cameras are still helping researchers make new discoveries.
The best from Nikon's 50th Small World Photomicrography competition. Microscopic images featuring fantastic discoveries showcasing even the smallest details, such as slime mold on a rotten twig, spores on a black truffle, a cluster of octopus eggs, an electrical arc between a pen and a wire, and wing scales of a butterfly. This year's winning minuscule photo could have major scientific ramifications. You're looking at differentiated mouse brain tumor cells showcasing 3 separate parts of the cell structure. The team from the Medical College of Georgia at Augusta University spent months creating a process to snap the clear picture, and it's not just a pretty pic. They say these cells could be used to study how disruptions could lead to the neurodegenerative diseases Alzheimer's and ALS.
Spending some time out west today. We start in Yakima, Washington, where Mr. Sue's class is online and awesome at Lewis and Clark Middle School in the Evergreen State. From the land of enchantment, it's Mrs. Kostet's class that's with us from Carlsbad Intermediate School, Alta Vista. We see y'all in Carlsbad, New Mexico. And makes sense that the Rams would call Bighorn, Wyoming their home. Mrs. Duggard's students from Bighorn High School are in the Cowboy State.
Where in the world? This is an island nation in the Pacific Ocean. It was once an enemy of the U.S., but it is now a close ally. It's prone to earthquakes, typhoons, and tsunamis. This is Japan, a nation of more than 123 million people.
Several companies claim to make the world's smallest Rubik's Cube. One version sells in the U.S. for about $9. But to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the toy, the company teamed up with a Japanese manufacturer to make a markedly minuscule model whose price, like the puzzle, may blow your mind. It holds the Guinness World Record for smallest rotating puzzle cube.
This is what it takes to solve the world's smallest Rubik's Cube. You'll need a lot of patience and a pair of tweezers.
It's about the size of a few grains of rice, with each side measuring just 5 millimeters. But yes, it actually works.
It's made with such delicate parts that if you shake it roughly like you would with a normal Rubik's Cube, there's a possibility that parts might come off.
The world's smallest Rubik's Cube was designed by Japanese toy maker Mega House. Made of aluminum, it's about 1,000 times smaller than the classic version.
I wanted to show the world the beauty of Japanese miniatures, the technology that is packed into these small things. But assembling them is the trickiest part because it has to be rotatable. If you make it too tight with no gaps, it won't move, so you need a minimum amount of space.
You need a lot of concentration to do this. Okay, then good eyes.
At over $5,000, this tiny cube is more of a collector's item, with deliveries rolling out from April. Hanako Montgomery, Tokyo.
I think they did that just so I couldn't cheat by pulling the stickers off. Some would say $5,000 is not a square deal, but others would call it square cube. And while it takes more than a rubric and a few tricks to solve a Rubik's whose bricks are too mixed to fix quick and you get too ticked that the sick cube picked gave you a swift kick, at least you're not alone in being puzzled. I'm Carl Azuz, and we're thankful you picked the world from A to Z.